Hi, and welcome back to the Drama-Free Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Jess Cording, and I'm so excited to welcome you to today's episode. I'm going to be chatting with one of my fellow RDs, Keri Gans. Keri and I have been in the same RD world for a really long time. It's always such a pleasure to be, featured in articles alongside her. I've been a guest on her awesome podcast, the Keri Report. And today we do a deep dive into just how the field has changed and how social media has really impacted how we show up in our work, and sort of some of the pros and cons, and how it means that we need to be extra intentional about our messaging, and how a lot of us are just trying to figure it out. So Keri is a registered dietitian nutritionist, a certified yoga teacher, and author of The Small Change Diet. She's also a Shape Magazine and Forbes Magazine advisory board member and a contributor for U.S. News and World Report. So the Keri Report, her own bi-monthly podcast and newsletter, helps to convey her no-nonsense and fun approach, which you guys will love, to living a healthy lifestyle. Gans is a sought-after nutrition expert, has conducted thousands of interviews worldwide, and she lives in New Jersey with her husband Bart and four-legged son Cooper. Gans is a huge animal lover, pseudo-professional TV binge-watcher, and martini enthusiast. And you guys are going to love what she has to share, and you can check out all that and more at kerigansny.com. We will link to all her socials and such in the show notes. You can make it really easy to connect with her. And I hope that you guys like today's episode. Just a heads up about audio. My producer does an amazing job, but I happen to have a very loud cat here with me who is ready for his dinner. So if you hear some just heavy breathing and loud meowing, it's just my cat Beef. He is ready for dinner. And as soon as I finish recording this with you guys, I'm going to go feed my little or big beast and, the two creatures and get back to life. But I assume you guys are not here for the audio. But life with cats, right? So, as always, guys, I am so happy you're here. Enough of me talking. Let's get to the episode. Welcome to Drama-Free Healthy Living with Jess Cording. I'm your host, Jess Cording. I'm a registered dietitian, health coach, and author, and I'm here to help you streamline your wellness routine and establish a sane, more balanced relationship with food and fitness so you can reach your goals without losing your mind. On this podcast, we'll talk about nutrition, exercise, self-care, mindset, and more. I'll be bringing you interviews and expert insight on the topics that matter to your health and wellness. Keri, welcome to the podcast.
So great to be here.
I know we've been talking about doing this for a while. I know we haven't sat down for a podcast since I think I was on your show.
Right, probably. I was thinking about that. And I don't even think I've seen you since then. I don't know. I don't know where the days, the months go, the years. It's just crazy.
Oh,
time flies.
Yeah, it is just I look at the calendar sometimes and I'm like, how is this possible? I don't understand.
Well, sometimes I understand how I don't have time. And because then I wonder what I'm doing all the time. I don't know. It's also kind of crazy. It's like, why? Busy. We always being busy is not necessarily a badge of honor. People are like, oh, I'm so busy, as if like it's a good thing. And I hate when I say, well, I'm so busy, because it's not a badge of honor. I should be figuring out a way to be less busy.
Oh my
that
gosh.
Would be more a badge of honor.
You hit the nail on the head. That's something I think about all the time. There was definitely, and I think this is very typical for many dietitians because a lot of us wear so many hats, but I definitely went through the phase where I was so busy all the time, and I'm still so busy all the time. But what feels different is that I'm trying not to be.
But I get it. But sometimes the end of the day and I'm like, wait, what did I actually do?
Yes. And then you look at your list, you're like, oh, right. All these 15 things.
And then I look at, I hate to admit it, but my paper written to-do list, which I know people make fun of, but every day I try to do my list. And then I feel very accomplished when I cross things off. Like it's a good day if I've done a lot of crossing off. That's for sure.
I have an electronic version of that. I have a note on my phone where
most people do. I just still I like paper. I do.
Whatever works. It has to feel helpful and good. My problem is I have the paper on the Post-it every day and I have the electronic version, and they don't always
match. All right. Well,
I hear
That
you.
will keep you busy just to organize that.
That is my thing. When I can tell I'm having a hard time getting into that deep work state because I'll start just like shuffling things around on my to-do list. And like, maybe I'll do that tomorrow and that can happen on Wednesday and next week I'm like, okay.
See, that's when I talk, I'm wondering if you do it with your cats. That's when I do it with Cooper. That's like, oh, let me just sit down and talk to Cooper a little bit more about life. Everyone, that's my dog. And, yes, that's what I do. It's like, I really need to do work right now, but I think I'll sit with Cooper for a little bit longer. It's crazy.
God, I love the animal. Like they just, I don't know.
They're everything. Yeah.
They're the best.
They're the best. Podcast for another time. We could just discuss animals, and what they do for us so much.
God, my cat Beef, he just walked in here. You can't see him on the camera, but I have a 20 plus pound cat.
Oh my God.
In the room with me. He's a beast. He's oh my goodness. I could talk about my cats all day, but let's
okay. Let's
podcast for another day.
Exactly.
So Keri, you are a fellow registered dietitian, and I know we both not so much this year, but often run into each other at events, and are often quoted in the same articles.
That still happens all the time.
Yes, I always love hearing your take on things, and just I'm always thinking like, okay, what's Keri going to say about this one? And you have a great podcast, the Keri Report.
Thank you. When you were a guest, yes, which was great.
Yes, we were talking about women and chocolate, and
so a lot to say there. Yes.
Oh yeah. But something I really love about having dietitians on my podcast is just there's so many different things that bring people into this field. And I would love for you to share with us just sort of what inspired you to become a dietitian.
It's an interesting story because it's also rather boring in that I didn't have I didn't always know I wanted to be a dietitian like so many RDs. I didn't originally go for school for it. I didn't even know registered dietitians even existed. I sometimes make random decisions. And I kind of feel like this was a random decision. Never met a dietitian. I don't even know how it got into my brain, but I was working on 7th Avenue in the Garment Center as a sales manager for a women's clothing company nationwide. And I don't know. I started saying, is this all there is? My husband at the time was working for himself, and he used to take off on Fridays. And I was like, I don't know, maybe I need to change, do something else. And I don't know how nutritionist popped into my head. No idea. Literally don't remember. What I do know is probably I grew up with one of those mothers that was doing yoga long before it became popular. She was also the kind of person that bought natural peanut butter, and I thought I was being tortured. Nobody got natural peanut butter. She would squeeze fresh orange juice for me in the morning, and I was like, no pulp. I hate pulp. No, I don't want this. So somehow health was ingrained in me. And when I was figuring out what to do, because I was working like a crazy, crazy person in the garment sector, and here my husband, now husband, wasn't at the time, was a healthcare professional, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to become a dietitian. Again, don't know how I even knew the name, and become a person who works for themselves, go into private practice. And that was my original idea. And then it's a whole other story of what happened after, but that's how it all began.
Thank you for sharing that. Because I think, I actually can relate quite a bit to that. I was aware of dietitians as a profession, but I hated chemistry class so much. I was like, anything I can do to avoid chemistry. But the moment I decided to go back to school, really, truly, I was in a really toxic relationship in my early 20s. And I remember there was a lot of conflict around food. He was vegetarian, I was not, but he was very judgy about it. I have nothing against vegetarianism, except when someone is a jerk about it.
Exactly.
And I remember though, I was, he always got the New York Times. He had no money for, he said he'd have no money for anything, but he had a daily subscription to the New York Times. And I was really intrigued by the conversations happening around school food. And I was like, I was just musing, I wonder if kids, when I was a kid, if our moms had gotten better messaging about giving us healthy fats, if we would have less anxiety. And I was talking about that stuff. And he was like, well, no one's ever going to listen to you because you don't have any credentials. And I just remember being like, there was this like fire in me. It was like, bitch, I'm going to go get some credentials. Like that was kind of like what lit a fire under me to go back to school.
It's always, there's different motives for everyone. Some are very clear cut. Some, a lot of people have in common, and some just come out of nowhere, like yours, and definitely mine.
It's funny. I found a report I wrote when I was 16. In class, we had to do like a career unit where we studied different professions. And I don't remember this at all, but I chose dietitian. And I was like,
interesting.
Really? But I look back, I'm like, but me, average income is like $45,000 a year.
Right.
How did I not know better? But when you're 16, that doesn't mean anything to you.
I mean, I originally went to school for communications.
Me too.
I was going to work in film. And then sometimes it's always about a man. And then I met somebody, and I don't know, I ended up changing majors, became a marketing major. And again, I don't even know how I wound up in the garment center because it had nothing to do with what I even went to school for. So anyone listening, you don't always wind up where you think you're going to. That is for sure, especially in careers.
Oh my gosh. Sometimes I think about that. I'm like, well, I can't imagine what's next. Because really,
I always joke, what's going to be my next career?
Right. Yeah. And in our field, I feel like a lot of people do have different chapters. I mean, every person does, but I feel like especially dietetics, the field evolves so much. And, I feel like we've had to evolve along with it as well and learn things that we were not originally trained to do. And
a lot of it, I will say, I'm not the happiest about. I will say that. But yes, there's been a lot of changes, and we have to learn to be flexible and to kind of mold ourselves depending upon what it is we do. And there's one thing to stay current. That's a whole nother conversation. I mean, yes, we need to stay current in the field. We need to be up to date on science. But depending upon what you do in the field, and with all the changes that have happened, social media and all of that, there's been a big shift for a lot of us in our careers. If we want to keep up with as we'll say, the Joneses. I don't know why that expression ever came, but if we want to keep up with the Joneses, we have to either do certain things or reinvent ourselves, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's wild. And
yes,
something I have really appreciated about what you share in the space is just that as dietitians, we really need to be thoughtful about how we communicate, what we're communicating. And I'd love to hear some of your, anything you'd like to share with our listeners about, just some of the ways that maybe that shows up for dietitians, like what we should or maybe we could talk about okay, maybe the elephant in the room. And I'm sure by the time this episode comes out, there'll be another one of these.
Oh, there's always an elephant in the room. Okay, that's life.
Oh my gosh. So I do feel like there have been some major media outlets in the last year or so, and, a little bit trickling before that, but just kind of skewering dietitians for being in bed with big food and paid off by, these big food companies, and kind of trying to build distrust of registered dietitians, which I have lots of thoughts about that, but I'd love to hear your take on it.
I have a lot of thoughts too. The first thing is I don't like it when people think we're in bed with the big food, because I have spent, the last 20 years working with huge companies and doing spokesperson work. And I have never partnered with a brand that I did not feel shared the same mission, or I didn't read all their studies, and I wasn't out there just sharing their message coming from no place. It came from a place of knowledge, and it wasn't there for the money, strictly. Who doesn't want the money? Let's all be honest. I'm not going to be oh no, it wasn't about the money. Of course, but wouldn't take the work if it wasn't on brand. So, I would never take, if somebody came to me, now watch somebody comes to me, a sports something. I was never a sports dietitian. I leave that to sports dietitians. But be that as it may, yes, the whole idea of being in bed, I think where it's gotten a little crazy is twofold. One is the whole disclosing thing, and that's one conversation where some RDs don't do a good enough job. And I always like to say that some people might just be, it wasn't on purpose. Okay. Maybe sometimes people are not disclosing because it was an accident. They just completely forgot. I don't know. There's always reasons. I'm not that person, so I can't say when somebody doesn't disclose when they don't disclose. But the bigger problem, I think, in the world of dietetics and in the world of where we are today with social media is that a lot of what's shared isn't really what I would personally constantly share. And that's where you and I have known that we've agreed on. It's this whole idea, the anti-diet movement. And I don't know if that's the element that we're going to talk about because there's so many elements.
That's a good one to talk about.
The anti-diet movement, in my opinion, has gone too far. And whether or not, I mean, I remember years ago, years and years and years ago, one of the early days of Dr. Radio, I was on with somebody who was a spokesperson for health at every size. And the conversation was not like the conversation is today with a lot of these anti-dietitians, where weight loss doesn't need to be necessarily a bad word. Okay. It's like, I was just going to say, they couldn't see that I did quotes, but if you're only listening, I put it in quotes. You're not watching the video because weight loss is not a bad word. And we have to stop. I think too many people in dietetics are one, judgmental, two, not looking at somebody else as an individual, taking their own stuff and putting it on to someone, all right, which is a no-no. As practitioners, we need to listen. And just because somebody wants to lose weight and it's coming from, once we've decided, it's coming from a solid place. It's not disordered eating. It's not a full-blown eating disorder. What is so terrible? Why can't somebody want to lose weight? Why has it become such, I don't understand. And along with that, it's like, shouldn't we then be helping them? Because it will help, science will show, will help decrease their risk for diabetes. Okay. It will help improve perhaps their triglyceride or cholesterol. I mean, there's lots of PSs to every conversation, but I don't know. Am I rambling?
No, I think that I agree with that so much. I think it's tricky because, we want people to feel supported and empowered. And I do see on social media, there's a lot of pressure to, how do I phrase this? Like almost this idea that's being perpetuated that if somebody wants to lose weight, that's automatically disordered or that's somehow automatically not okay. And and this is as someone who at a time did have an eating disorder, and I'm very sensitive to how I talk about weight and body and, but I think that we also have to look at the big picture of our health and losing weight when it will truly benefit someone's physical and emotional well-being. That's not disordered. I think there's such a line.
Why can't we, I always feel like if we're not going to help them, then who is? Dietitians. Early on in my career, I started working with people with weight loss, and it's what I've done for most of my years in private practice. And I have a zillion stories of how people just felt better. One of my favorite ones is this woman who, needed a seatbelt extender. Now, when she didn't need a seatbelt extender anymore on the airplane, she felt amazing. Okay. She just felt really good. We were never, the goal was never to get her down to a size 0. The goal was never to get her to even a size 6. The goal was that she would feel better, that she would lose some weight, her labs would improve, and she wouldn't be embarrassed. And one could argue, well, she shouldn't have been embarrassed if she needed to do a seatbelt extender, blah, blah, blah. But she felt better. And isn't that worth a lot? And who are we to sit here and say, oh, no, that shouldn't be your want. That should not be your goal.
Right.
We should listen. And the only time I say to somebody that shouldn't be your goal, it's one, if they're like, oh, I want to lose 30 pounds in a month. Okay, no, you don't want to do that. Or they're at a perfectly healthy, wonderful body weight and they want to get, super thin. All right. I will use again those PSs with them. I'm like, we don't want to be malnourished. We want to make sure that you're able to be social, that you're not creating disordered eating for yourself. So many different conversations, but that's kind of what we should be doing. we should be having those conversations and not sitting on a pedestal and deciding what people should be doing. I mean, that's not our job as a practitioner.
Absolutely. I think that, I don't know what your experience has been, but I find that when people come see me for the first time, especially if they've been referred to me by someone else, they think that I'm going to take away a bunch of foods or that I'm going to,
That's not our job.
Not at all. And, I think what you said about listening, that is so important. Like I sometimes honestly, my first session with a client, the first 30 minutes, I'm asking them questions about themselves. And sometimes they're like, why are you asking me all this?
Well, because you want to know about them. I want to know, do you eat out often? Do you cook? Do you know how to cook? Do you want to cook? Because, if somebody's telling me I'm never cooking, okay, well, that's okay. Let's talk about how to eat out in a healthier way and to get healthier, not in an anal way that they never sit down to a bowl of pasta. That's not what we're talking about. All right. We're not talking about forgoing the pizza, but we're talking about maybe how do you make that pizza a little healthier? And every once in a while, you want the pepperoni, you want whatever on the pizza, go for it. Again, because nobody's diet is defined in one day.
Yeah.
We need to look the same way we always talk. It's not defined by one food. It's not defined by one day. It's cumulative. And we also need to look at the person, what else they're doing. All right. I mean, there's exercise, there's sleep, there's stress, there's all of that. But then you have the dietitians who are out there and all they do is post pictures of themselves, like eating dessert. Yeah. I don't know. How helpful is that? Okay. I mean, it's okay. I mean, we should be knowing it's okay to eat dessert. But the point of only really oversharing that and sharing, you can eat this and that, but never really also helping them to understand what else they should be eating. It's really about what we add and not necessarily take away. And I think more of that needs to be. It's funny. I was walking my dog this morning and I was like, for a minute, because I have nothing to put on social. The worst. I can't stand it and I hardly do. And I'm like, all right, I need a new idea. So I'm walking and I'm like, all right, let's do Cooper. It's Keri's thoughts on Cooper's walks. But I ended up not sharing it because my husband said to me, I was like, I'm going to just talk about Memorial Day weekend coming up. And everybody's going to be like, oh my God, I've worked so hard. I don't want my diet to be derailed. What should I do? Blah, blah, blah. So I had one answer. Choices. You choose. You could eat whatever you want, as much as it if you want, or you don't. The choice is yours. And my husband's like, Keri, that is terrible advice. He's like, you need to give somebody more than that. And I was like, oh, I just thought it was interesting because I was oversimplifying. And I think that sometimes that could be the problem as well. It's back to, we don't know where a person's coming from. We don't know what they might need. We need to listen and try to help them. I mean, yeah, sometimes it is very simple and sometimes it's not. It's more complicated.
Nuance. Nuance is so important. And I find that in a social media environment where you're taking things one post at a time, often out of context, it is so hard to deliver nuance. It is and I think that's a big piece of what's driving this issue too, is that, you can see one post from someone like, yes, she's eating sugar in this post, but maybe the next post, she's sharing some thoughts about, I don't know, making room for dessert in a healthy diet.
You might not see it. It's so true. And I have a problem. That's why I feel like a lot of times I love that word nuance. A lot of times I won't say something because in my brain, it's like, oh, but there's all these nuances. And I think also though, it's because we've become a culture that are overly sensitive to how people are hearing us. And you're like, well, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to, am I being PC? Maybe I shouldn't say that anymore. I mean, we're overly cautious. And that sometimes I think we don't say enough because of that.
Oh my God, for sure. That's something that comes up for me a lot is I have to remind myself that it's okay to say the whole thing, in a way that's, my filter is always, is this helpful for someone else? Like, is this a thing I just need to say for me? Or is this something that actually is going to, be important for someone like,
Right. Well, but that's again, isn't our job as dietitians? And I know I'm repeating myself, is one, yes, to listen, but two, to remember that, yes, maybe we have some things in common with that person, but we have nothing at all in common with that person. And that's why, those RDs who are also like, well, everyone should eat organic. Okay. I mean, let's talk about how in certain areas that's not an option and the price becomes prohibitive. So again, are we becoming like this? We're sitting on this pedestal. Okay. No, you shouldn't lose weight. No, you should only eat organic. No, all these things you shouldn't want or you shouldn't do, but we should be more encouraging. And I know some people might be listening to say, well, we're encouraging people to, be more than not be so hard on themselves. Well, I agree with that. I totally 100% agree that people should not be. They should be more compassionate. But we also have to realize that sometimes change is what a person needs, and we're hopefully there to hold their hand. Not literally, maybe, but you know what I mean. Not physically, but literally. And and help them through it to meet their goals, not ours, for them.
I love that distinction. And I know I've had this experience in my work where I have a goal in mind for somebody, but they're not ready for that goal yet, or they have a different goal in mind. And I have to keep my shit in check and just make it about showing up for them and giving them what they need to get to that goal.
I love that. I've worked with many people from Overeaters Anonymous, and always at the end, we come up with the plan. And I could say, don't do blah, blah, blah. I think we need to cut back on blah, blah, blah. And they'll be like, not ready to commit to that. I'm like, so then it becomes a bargaining tool. Okay, so you're not ready to cut back on that, but maybe you could twice a week. And they'll be like, yeah, I could do that twice a week. And then that becomes part of the plan. Hence my book, The Small Changes, which I wrote forever ago, but it's all about doing what you're ready to, making the changes that you are ready for. And one change can build on top of another change and then another change. And then before you know it, you're starting to get closer and closer to your goal, but you weren't doing some crazy, crazy fad diet that you couldn't keep up with.
Let's talk about that, because that is something that I feel like we get fought on all the time as dietitians. Like, and I'm right there with you about the small changes. I'm all about it because I've seen it work, for clients and patients over the years. Like, we get to see those changes, but it's just like, I can't tell you how many times I've had a client like fight me on like, they think they shouldn't eat above 1,000 calories, or they think they shouldn't eat any carbs. And I'm like, well, I don't think we need to be this extreme. And in fact, being that extreme might work against your goal.
Well, that's the interesting thing, is when they don't expect it coming from us.
Yes.
I just had a patient the other day, and she texted me earlier today, and it's like, oh my God, Keri, I've been doing the 0% fat-free yogurt for so long. You told me to switch to 2%. What have I been doing? I'm so much fuller, because that was the reason for the switch. I didn't think she needed to do 0. But here's always my PS. I'm like, unless you truly, truly love it. That's like somebody telling me to switch to 2% milk. It's not happening. I've been non-fat milk basically my entire life, and I'm not switching to 2%. I won't enjoy it. Has nothing to do with the fat, nothing else, but I wouldn't enjoy it. And she's young. I'm not worried about her consuming too much saturated fat. Regular 2% yogurt was great for her. But yet, we also discussed how maybe when she goes out to eat, did she really need to have, if she's looking to lose a little weight, did she really need the cheese, the sour cream, and the guacamole with her Mexican food? Or maybe it was a choice. Maybe you cut back on one. Maybe it was get rid of the cheese and just have the guac and the sour cream. Or sour cream, it was about getting rid of one. So in some times we do encourage getting rid of, but I always want to replace it with something. Maybe it was more of a veggie or something. Or we are adding, like in this case, we were adding a little fat, but it's going to even out at the end of the day.
I love that. And what you say about choices, I think is so valuable. And I think that that's part of, I think, how dietitians can help people is to make those choices. Like I had a patient years ago. I don't even think he knows like what an impact he had on like my work. Like I wish I could go back in time, just like thank him. But he came up with this mantra for himself where he was working on getting like reducing or getting off his diabetes meds, reducing blood pressure meds, like had a really busy work life that involved a lot of travel and taking clients out and stuff. And, he would say, I choose my moments, meaning like choosing his moments to indulge. And I was, that was a big thing we worked on, like how, like deciding like what's worth it. And
Yes.
To see someone be able to feel comfortable doing that because of the work that we've done with them to recognize like what makes them feel good, what helps support their goals, but then also understanding, pleasure and what to prioritize there and how that can fit in without working against their goals. It's like magical.
Right. And that's not to say that, like, people who, again, are so against, like, they think, oh, if you're helping somebody to lose weight, if that's a goal, oh, what are you putting them on some kind of strict diet? I've never given out a diet plan in my entire career. No, I don't have time for that. I'm not doing a diet plan. I don't even like handouts. Okay. So I don't really give out any materials, especially today with Google, whatever. But the point is that that's not what we're necessarily doing. We're guiding them to make better choices. I'm not telling them this is what you need to eat for breakfast. This is what you need to eat for lunch. This is what you need to eat for dinner, because that's ridiculous. I don't know what they're going to do, where they're going to be, but they need to learn like choice. What choices do they make where they are? And so, yes, maybe I should share the Cooper Walks one because it is about ultimately choices. It's as simple as that. But obviously having some guidance into what will make your choosing easier is where definitely a dietitian can be extremely helpful, and not helpful by telling them just do whatever you want.
Yeah. There are definitely times like once in a while I'll get a client who's just like really coming hot, and they're like, they bring all their stuff and they start telling you all the things that they don't eat. And, they're stressing out about this event coming up and what are they going to eat for breakfast on vacation. And there are times I just want to be like, just calm down. Like just calm the fuck down.
Just have fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Let that shit go. Just have fun.
But I also I remind myself, like, okay, have compassion. Like this person is really experiencing all these feelings. They want to feel calmer, but they need help getting there.
Yeah.
And your job is to help them with that.
Right. No, it's so true. They're just not there yet. And it's not to say that they're still not going to, what we want is for them to be able to enjoy the vacation is the most important thing. And if somebody comes in and they're all over the place and they've been dieting their whole lives, and that there's a difference when I use the word dieting versus healthy eating approach. And I know it's a choice of words because first of all, diet is not necessarily something you go on. It doesn't have to be something you go on and go off. It could be the way you eat. That's the word what diet means. But we think of the word diet as something you go on and go off. And so that could be something that people have been struggling with their whole life. So we want to get them away from the diet mentality, but we also want to make sure, like there are people who will say that, when they've lost the whole diet mentality, that there are those that have benefited and those that actually gained weight. So once again, it's knowing who you're dealing with and helping that person. And sometimes it's also, different than what you see on social, but for those that work one-on-one, a lot of times it's not the right marriage. It just doesn't work. I once had a mother send me her college student daughter, and she really wanted me to help her lose weight. And I know they were disappointed with me because what I observed was really more disordered eating. All I wanted to do is help her normalize first. I wanted her to get normalized around food. Then we could work on those 10 pounds. Or maybe then those 10 pounds became something that is not an issue anymore because it's only 10 pounds. But there's a difference. Okay. And I think once again, so she did come back to see me and maybe she found somebody else that helped her meet her her goals. Well, I should say the mother's goals, which is terrible. And that's not even a good scenario. But that's different. We need to listen. Again, that's going to be the title of this episode. Yes. I know. Just listen. Just listen. And don't, just listen.
So it's so important. And I think I've definitely experienced, because because as an RD and health coach and Pilates instructor and Reiki practitioner, I
didn't know you do Reiki. Oh, that's something new. I didn't know. Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing.
I've been certified for years. It's only been more recently that I've actually started to integrate it into my work. And I find it very helpful, because I find a lot of what people are needing support with is the more just feeling a little calmer, relaxation. Because sometimes, I work with a lot of people who, have had really serious medical diagnoses, and the treatment of those, of treating those illnesses has led to all these side effects that are affecting their metabolism. And so there's all these layers of stress and trauma and frustration. I'm there's a lot to work on. And it's not, I would be doing them a disservice if I was here's a meal plan. See you in a week.
Right. Yeah. Here's a meal plan. Or maybe a disservice if you weren't helping them at all. Meaning just do whatever you want. Don't get hung up on it. But it's more to it. It's just so much more to it.
And figuring out how to translate that kind of approach, though, to social media and the way that people consume health information today is really tricky. It's
it's the ones with the biggest voices. I do love what you said earlier. And I think that's a very valid point, that you can't, when you look at that, it could be a snapshot. So yes, that's like if someone's now saying, oh, Keri in her recent blog had French fries, making a point. Yeah, I love French fries. And I was trying to make a point at that moment that if you want the French fries, eat the French fries. But there's always the but. Don't eat them every day. All right. And if I was just showing me drinking martinis every day with French fries, that would be the wrong message. So, but if you catch a glimpse of it and you misconstrued it, because let's say you didn't see it and then the next month you see me do it again, whatever. But then again, people's algorithms, they end up seeing the same people over and over again. So they do. And they will see if they're only posting pictures of French fries or chocolate cake or cupcakes or whatever it is that this person is overdoing.
Right. It is funny, though. I often find myself thinking about whenever, I always have this, not I sit down, I think, okay, here is my mental checklist, but I have my different little checklist before I post anything of all right, is this helpful? Is this, reflective of what I want to be putting out there? But because I spend so much time in the oncology space, anytime I'm thinking about posting red meat or processed meat, I'm always all right,
yeah.
Is this should I add some kind of disclaimer? Do I need to explain myself? And then other brain, who, wants, who had eating disorder treatment 25 plus years ago, is well, we shouldn't apologize for wanting to eat a sausage. That's a whole other.
So you're having this conversation back and forth in your own brain, right? And I just think, though, you probably, because you're much younger than I, you probably don't even remember the world where there was no social media and life was just so wonderful. And we got information. Well, we might have gotten it from magazines. Oh, yes. And they were print magazines. Oh. And as a media dietitian, when you saw your name in print, it was oh my God, it was the most amazing thing. And that's where people got their information. Then that all went online, which was very helpful, though, I think, to read a lot of the articles that you and I are constantly quoted in. But now it's also social media, which it has been for many, many years. And depending upon who you're listening to, it's the same could be said what magazine you were reading. Hopefully, same could be argued. But I just think there's more noise. And there's people speaking louder. And if somebody sees they have, 200,000 followers and they could never even gone to nutrition school, they don't even have to be a registered dietitian, but they have 200,000 followers or more. They're talking about nutrition. Everybody's chiming in. Oh, I love this. And all of a sudden people start to think, well, should I be doing this? This person must know. Look at all these people that follow this person. Just because they have a lot of followers doesn't make their information credible.
That's so fascinating to me. But I think like we're so conditioned to think that, follow the leader, right? Like if somebody like has a big following, I think they're on some level, there's still that conditioning. Like, I don't know. I grew up, like, I remember like when dial-up internet first arrived, right? And it was such a big deal. And like, so I didn't grow up with it. Like I got social media. Someone signed me up for the Facebook in college. And I was like, what the hell is
college,
this?
Right.
Yeah. And it's been really interesting, starting my career before all of this was around. And then, having to adapt and kind of deal with like being the elder millennial in the room who's like I feel very in between generations because it's not native to me, but it's not completely foreign, or it's not something that it's not like I had so long without it. But I do feel like there's a lot to keep up with. And I think that it's challenging for people like they're, who don't have any kind of health background to differentiate sometimes between what's credible and what's not.
Right. Or which one's, video, real is nicer. So a lot of times, that one was really well done. I'm gonna take that information just because it looked better. Or like some of the meals, like I always say, I didn't become a dietitian to become a photographer. So hence I don't take pictures of my meals. I mean, I have, and they're always ugly pictures because I'm not a photographer. I'm not a chef. I joke that I, didn't become a dietitian to be an influencer on my phone, meaning, and I'd say that because I've always considered myself somebody with influence. I'm a nutrition with influence, which is different than being an influencer. It's hard. It's hard for many of us in the field. I mean, I know like we're talking lots of different conversations here, but it's hard. It's hard in the field today. If indeed you don't want to constantly do social, it's not, it's not, I don't know. I don't love it. And I feel because there's so much information out there that I think is harmful. And it just puts a sour taste in my mouth. And a lot of times when I'm wanting to say something, like how you have that conversation in your head, my conversation goes, who cares? It's the same way. When I look at people's social, I'm like, who cares? Who cares what you're saying? I don't care. I don't care what you're eating. I don't care what you're doing. Who cares? So because my who cares all the time comes up in my head, half the time I post.
I love that. No, I think we all have our own version of that. And social media, I don't know if I'll ever find my like happy space, happy medium with it. Like it's part of the deal. It's been interesting to watch it evolve. And I find the less I care, the easier it is to use it as a
like, for sure.
I gave up. I forget if it was like how many years ago it was, but for my own business, I made a decision to stop doing recipe posts. Like once in a great while, I'll share something I'm loving, but to stop like using that as like a primary focus of my work. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made for my sanity because I'm never going to be a good videographer or like food photographer. And I don't need to be. There's people who are doing a great job with that.
It's funny. This is pre-pandemic. That's when I used to do a lot of yoga stuff. And then the pandemic hit. And then, I don't know, things changed. And then all of a sudden I was like, do I constantly need to show my yoga? I don't know. Then that shifted for me. It's like, and then because I could never get good pictures once I was then not in a studio and I was just in my house. It just all changed. And now the longer you don't do something, then you don't really want to do it again. Like if you all of a sudden decided, do I want to do a recipe? You'll be like, it's been so long. Maybe I don't really want to do it. Like every once in a while, will I post a yoga something? Yes. Only because it's part of my life and it's part of what I do on a regular basis. But then that goes back to, I'm like, but who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Who cares?
Yeah, I think going back to what you were saying earlier about, context and messaging, like I know for me, something I always use as just a kind of driving like decision-making factor is like, is this in alignment? Like, does this feel aligned with what I want to be putting out there or what I would want someone to stumble across if they happen to find my account or look up my name? Like
in alignment with what you're perceiving then, as you understand, I should say, what your brand is.
Exactly.
Because I think there's a difference. That's what I try to say to myself. Aligning with my brand not aligning in what might be happening out there. Like, when everybody was doing the feta and pasta thing, whatever, all those different TikTok challenges or recipes that go viral. I'm not doing this.
I don't have time for that.
I don't have time for that. No, I don't. I don't even, I mean, you talk about like, just doing the recipes would take time. I mean, that's when I decided I don't even care anymore. When I do almost all my reels, and if I ever told my younger self this, I'd be like, there's no way she's going to do this. I don't even put makeup on. I'm like,
same.
I don't care. I don't care. I mean, the only one who's probably would be appalled by it if she understood this more would be my mother, because she'd be like, what do you mean you don't have makeup on when you're doing this? But it's like, I don't. I did put mascara on today for you because we said we were doing video, but for my own reels, I don't. I can't be bothered. It's like one more thing that I really don't want to do.
I'm right there with you. I had to shoot a video of me doing lifting weights for a reel recently with a brand partner. And I was like, I forgot I had to do it. And it was like, 6 in the morning. I'm like, crap, I got to do that video lift. All right, fine, let's just do it. Like I didn't even think about my outfit or like if my basement was clean enough. Like I just was like, all right, I got to do this video because I got stuff to do today. And it was fine. Like
who filmed it though? See, that's the other. Did your husband film it or did you set up your camera?
I just set up my phone. It should have
right. No,
but no,
that's the other thing. Yeah. I can't even, I have all the lights, everything, and I can never use it. It's too much. I can only just put my phone in front of me and be done, or put it on a little stand and be done.
Yeah. And you know what, where I'm at right now, that feels like enough.
Doesn't it? Well, I think so. Because I also think priorities shift. I mean, that's it's like almost like we talk about this. Priorities shift in one's career, priorities shift in their own personal lives. And with that priority shift, it can also be a person's weight goals. What was important to them when they were 25 is different when they're 45. Priorities shift because life is a constant evolution of change, and everything we do is constantly evolving. We're not the same as we were a year ago. I know people might want to think that they might be. Sometimes I don't even think I'm the same that I was yesterday. We're constantly changing.
And I think that's a good thing. If we stayed exactly the same, like, oh my God, when I was a new dietitian, I thought I was going to be a lactation consultant. And I thought I was going to be a diabetes educator. And
interesting.
It's just life had a lot of other.
Well, that's the whole thing. I always say, I've talked to so many RD friends, and so many had a bucket list, on their bucket list, be an author, on their bucket list, be a spokesperson for the academy. I didn't have a bucket list as a dietitian. Same way I never knew what a dietitian was. I never had a bucket list. It just kind of just went along. Like, let me have a private practice. Then the private practice became more of that. Then it evolved into some kind of media type stuff. And then a book. And it just, spokesperson, it just evolved. And that's why I'm like, and I don't know where it's going to evolve next. But it's a constant evolution. And a lot of times the best laid plans are the plans you don't make.
Oh my gosh, I can relate to that. I will say a thread for me throughout my career and honestly my personal life has just been following gut feelings and intuition.
Yeah.
And that always seems to be.
Yes. It's a hard thing to do when you just listen to your gut. And I agree. I mean, and that's like, hey, I decided to become a dietitian like almost on a whim. And I've never had a regret.
Yeah.
Well, I don't love social media, but other than that,
right.
That's something I couldn't control, but I really had no regrets where it has led me to, and the things that I've gotten to do, and the places I've gotten to go, and the people I've gotten to meet, and the people, most of all, that I've gotten to help. All these people that I realize, like, oh my God, like, I really do love sharing information that could maybe help a person and that they might not have had been able to get if it wasn't for me.
I love that so much.
Kind of corny, but yeah, where you can actually make a difference in somebody's life. And it doesn't happen often. And one could argue, again, the nuance, well, those who are putting all this stuff out there on social, they're making some positive. And I will say, yes, without a doubt, there's those that do positive work. And then there are those and I'm not just talking dietitians, I'm talking all disciplines of the world. Some are without a doubt extremely helpful and some aren't. But in that life, so
I had one more question I wanted to ask you
yes.
about, because I would love to hear your take on this. And that is, for people who are going to social media in search of health information, do you have any tips for how they can, tell like what's credible, what's okay to listen to, what to be aware of? Like any tips you would give for someone?
So hard. Because I want to say, first and foremost, make sure they have credentials in what they're speaking about. So yes, I would want them, if there's, getting advice about nutrition, that'd be a registered dietitian. If they were getting advice about a shoulder injury, that it was an orthopedist, I'm pointing to my shoulder because it's injured, from an orthopedist or orthopedist. I would like, hair, make it from somebody who, is a stylist who does hair, whatever. You get what I'm saying. So that the credentials are there. Also, are they trying to sell you something? I'd be concerned about, if it's like, if you have to do this kind of nutrition stuff, but you have to take what I'm selling. So that would be, I wouldn't want them also trying to sell you again, if it was nutrition related. If it was nutrition related, I would hope that if they're giving you specific things to follow, that if it sounds a little crazy, that you look to see if there's some science. Did they share a study somewhere? The thing is, I'm not asking consumers to understand studies, but I just hope that someone who's speaking about something that might seem a little crazy, that maybe it's backed up by some research. And and also look at somebody's website. Look at what else they've been posting. Find out as much you can about a person you might be following, and go with your gut, as you said. Unfortunately, it is hard. What do you suggest, Jess? I'm curious. Like, what do you tell people?
No, I'm very aligned with that. I think it's really important to look for someone who has credentials and what you're seeking information on, to see what else they're posting. And if they are, because I also have started talking about more recently with clients is, when it comes to the whole, are they selling something, right? Because so many health practitioners now do partner with brands, and when it's above board and it's something that practitioner is like very, like I know for myself, I'm very picky about what brands I can work with. So if I share something from a brand, you better believe I've personally vetted it.
Right.
But to look for proper disclosure of partnerships,
yes.
that is also really important.
That's important for sure. But I'm not even talking about, a brand that, but I love the disclosure and that if they're recommending something, but I'm talking about actually their own product that they are actually selling.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other.
Yeah,
that's a whole other animal.
That's a whole other animal, and those are what I want you to be looking out for. Versus like, this is what I use, and I'm going to tell you why I use this, and I'm going to tell you why this is good for you. And a lot of times, if it's coming from a expert with the right credentials, it could be good information. But sometimes it can also not be. And that's why maybe you need to, if it's nutrition related, seek out. So many nutritionists take insurance now.
Mm-hmm.
So find a registered dietitian that takes insurance if you have all these questions, and do it virtually. The times have changed, I will say in this regard, definitely for the better, and that you can meet people so much easier, and that insurance, not all, but a lot will cover it.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's a really important note to include, that, dietitians are now more accessible than ever if you do want that little insight.
Extra, a little bit more individualized.
Yeah.
As opposed to somebody just making blanket statements.
Keri, I could talk to you about this stuff all day, but I want to be respectful of your time.
Thank you. No, this is great. Thank you for having me.
So if people want to connect with you, check out your book, read more of your work, where can you do that?
My website, which is KeriGansNY.com. But I keep feeling I have to change it. I live in New Jersey now.
I can relate. I know. I moved to.
Do I have to have NJ now? It's like changes everything. I can't.
Yeah. No, I'm not giving up my New York phone number. I can't do it.
Never. That's never happening.
Never happening.
Okay. But I don't even know about to change my website. No, for now, it's just still KeriGansNY.com, and everything about me, my podcast, everything's on there. One place shopping.
So we'll make sure to link to all that in the show notes. And Keri, my last question for you that I ask all my guests is, what does healthy living mean to you?
Healthy living is actually being happy. I know that sounds weird. I don't know. It's the first word that came to me. It's doing things that make you happy. So it's going to be different for everyone. I mean, healthy living for me personally, I can't say it's going to be for someone else. Healthy living for me, doing my yoga practice, doing pickleball. It's one, being active. It's trying to get adequate sleep, which I suck at. It's spending time with my husband, my children, my grandchildren, my dog. So it's healthy living is not just doing work. It's balance. I think I like that word too. I think healthy living is about balance. And I think that also comes out with food. It's have the martini, but also make sure you're having a salad and with a dressing you enjoy, because it has to be enjoyment. There's so many nuances in my own life, but I think I'm going to go with balance that makes you happy. And that to me has to incorporate with healthy living as well.
I love that. That is so wonderful. Balance that makes you happy. So good. So Keri, thank you for being a guest today. It was so nice to chat with you.
You're very welcome. All right. Hopefully I'll see you in person one of these days.
Yes. I am getting myself out there more this year and going forward, because it's
now that I'm in Jersey, I don't know.
I hear you. I totally get it.
The city, even though it's close, seems so far away. Okay. I don't know why. Okay. It keeps getting, every day I'm here, the city's getting further and further away. But anyway, again, a chat for another time.
Yeah. And all you guys tuning in on your devices, or maybe you're, out for a walk or doing the dishes or driving. Thank you as always for being here. We love sharing this time with you. And if you like what you hear, please like, share, subscribe, consider leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, because they really do matter and help me continue to bring you great guests like Keri. So as always, guys, have a wonderful day and we'll talk soon. Thank you for listening to Drama-Free Healthy Living with Jess Cording. We'll see you next time.